I have found that the greatest pleasure for me is when I've made somebody else feel good, or if I've lifted somebody else's spirits. It's an automatic reaction that my spirits are lifted. If I make somebody smile, it's an automatic reaction that I smile because I've given that to somebody else. So, when they say the more you give is the more you receive, I have experienced that. It may not be financially, but definitely on an emotional and spiritual and psychological level. I have found that, the more I help other people is the more I feel uplifted, the more I feel recharged to keep doing what I'm doing.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Reflections on Living Well podcast, where we explore perspectives on the good life in the 21st century. I am your host, Broderick. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Reflections on Living Well podcast. Today, our guest is Pato Banton. Pato, aka BrotherFriend, is an internationally renowned reggae legend that has recorded and toured the world with the English Beat, Stephen Marley, Still Pulse, UB40, and Sting, to name just a few. Not only has Pato topped the reggae and commercial charts all over the world, he has also had 5 top 20 hits in the British charts, with his biggest hit, Baby Come Back, featuring Ali and Robin Campbell of UB40, staying at the number 1 position for 4 weeks in a row and selling over 30 million copies. Although his 4-decade career has also earned him a Grammy nomination and a place in the British Music Hall of Fame, his journey has increasingly transcended the music business into the arenas of youth outreach, teaching in schools and colleges, writing new curriculum for children with learning disabilities, music outreach workshops around the world for at-risk young people in disadvantaged communities, and global spiritual ministry. Pato also received the BBC Lifetime Achievement Award in recognition of his tireless community work and his successful efforts to help reduce gun violence in his hometown of Birmingham, England. Pato's recent project is a documentary with his wife Antoinette and award-winning film director Kudzai Tanago exploring the ancient philosophy of Ubuntu, which means I am because we are in Bantu. Now based in Southern California, Pato continues to record and tour the world extensively, conveying a positive, fun, and spiritual message while simultaneously serving as a teacher, counselor, mentor, and minister of the verb to his fans, friends, and spiritual family. How you doing, Pato?
I'm doing very good, my brother.
Yeah, really good to be here with you. I'm really excited for our conversation. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. And
Nice.
I think we had a brief conversation before, and I really loved that brief introduction that we had before. And yeah, I've listened to your music, so it's like an honor to have you here and on this podcast to share your wisdom with the world. That little bio I read is very. It's even though I read a short snippet of it, but there's so much that this brother has done and is doing to bring about more love and goodness and beauty in the world. And it's just it's a joy to have you here. It's a pleasure to have you here to share your wisdom from your life experiences with us.
Thank you.
I know I just read the bio, and it's great to read it. But I love for folks to introduce themselves, because I think that when you introduce yourself, there's a little bit more that we can get out of that.
Mhm. Well, greetings and thank you for having me here. My name is Pato Banton. This is my professional name. I was born Patrick Murray in London, UK. Born into a very violent family relationship between my mum and her husband, and family split up when I was 6. We reunited when I was 8, and in a different city called Birmingham, UK. And my mother's new partner was a DJ from Jamaica, which is how I got my introduction to the music. and I was helping him out with his illegal parties for about 9 years, 7 years. Yeah, from the age of 8 till about 15. And then I launched my own career, first as a DJ and then as a solo artist. And I haven't looked back since. I've been touring the world for many years, made many albums, and done a lot of community outreach around the world. Currently, we're working in 10 countries across Africa on our Ubuntu International project, where we are building schools, orphanages, homes for the homeless, farms, acquiring land and teaching people how to farm and become self-sustainable. We've got women's projects as well, working with a lot of young people in schools and different music projects. So yeah, been very busy, very very busy. The movie that we produced that was released this year actually got 26 awards
Wow.
internationally. My partner Antoinette also got Best Music Soundtrack Award for the short film. So yeah, it's been a very, very productive and busy year.
Awesome. This is lovely. I really love to hear all of that. There's just so much there. I mean, we can have an interview just talking about your experiences in life and all the things that you've done, and even the things that you're doing. I mean, I think it would be great to have you to have us have a conversation about this new project, but we'll table that for now. And
All right.
but I think even more important than that is like for people to hear your philosophy on life. And when I actually impose these questions, what is a good life? What does living well mean to you? What makes life worth living? I think it gives you the opportunity to share your philosophy of life. And
Mhm.
so how do you address those questions? How do you answer those questions? What is a good life? What does living well mean? And what makes life worth living?
I think in my personal experience, um, what makes life worth living, I think, firstly, is uh, growing spiritually, finding your spiritual roots. You know, for me, starting my journey, as a black kid growing up in the UK, not knowing really anything about my origins, my first task was to really start to understand where I came from and made me, what caused me to be born in the UK. And so I started in Jamaica and then went back to West Africa to find out my general region of origin. And then once I had sorted out my physical roots, I wanted to know my spiritual roots. So then I started a 15-year search of religious scriptures and information, studied the world's religion, studied metaphysics, and then came to an understanding that I'm a child of God, whatever you want to call God. And in understanding that I'm a child of God, I recognize immediately that everyone else is a child of God, no matter what their religion is, or or their physical origins are. We're all spiritually related through the spirit of our Creator. And once I understood that, then I started to have this desire to share this information through my music primarily, and then and any other time outside of my performances when I get to meet people and talk to them. One of the main subjects is, religious or spiritual, or do you recognize that you're a child of God, which always creates a great conversation with people.
Mhm.
And then I had this desire to just be of service. And for me, that is a good life. That is the greatest opportunity in life, is to be able to serve your brothers and sisters, and not to like have a premeditated um, plan of how you're going to approach your service to your brothers and sisters, but to actually find out what is the real needs, to
Mm.
actually have a conversation with somebody instead of just going to the homeless with socks and toothbrushes. You go and talk to them and find out how are they doing? What do they need? What is their real need? Sometimes it's just an emotional uplift that they need, just to know that someone wants to listen to them, someone wants to love them, someone actually cares about them. And I have found that the greatest pleasure for me is when I've made somebody else feel good, or if I've lifted somebody else's spirits. It's an automatic reaction that my spirits are lifted. If I make somebody smile, it's an automatic reaction that I smile because I've given that to somebody else. So, when they say the more you give is the more you receive, I have experienced that. It may not be financially, but definitely on an emotional and spiritual and psychological level. I have found that, the more I help other people is the more I feel uplifted, the more I feel recharged to keep doing what I'm doing.
Hmm.
And of course, to live a good life, you need to have a skill or something that you classify as something that you do well, you know, whether it's something that can bring you income or something that you just really enjoy doing. Um, I think that's very important that you can do something well. If it can bring you income as well, that's a benefit. Then you're never working. You're just enjoying life, doing what you do naturally, what you enjoy doing, and you're reaping financial benefits. And as a musician, which is I would say my primary income, is also my primary love. You know, I enjoy music. I never had any idea that music could become my self sustainability in life, but it has, and for that I'm very, very happy because I feel as though I've always been just enjoying my hobby, you know. So, having a source of income, enjoying whatever work you're doing, those things are important. Making time for yourself, for meditation, for prayer, for grounding, for inner work, inner criticism, inner motivation, um, yeah, and inner planning of how you want to improve on your life and share what you're receiving when you're in these moments of solitude, in these moments of meditation. How can I pass this on, to my friends and family in a positive way? And then if you can find a partner as well in life, solitude, I don't function well when I'm alone, and solitude can lead to misery unless you're really good with being by yourself. But having a partner, having a good friend that supports you, can listen to you when you need someone to listen to you, and when you're feeling down, someone to lift you up. Having a person like that around you is I find that to be very, very essential too. Companionship is a beautiful thing. So, yeah. So those are the main things I can think of.
Wow, those are wonderful, amazing things. A lot of things, that a lot that are important. And let's unpack some of that. I loved your trajectory.
Mm-hmm.
I have a very similar trajectory in the sense that it began with who am I? Who am I in
Mm-hmm.
this world? When we ask ourselves questions. And
Yes.
what I loved about your journey, and it has been my journey too, and we have different lives, of course. But I'm saying this for the audience to see that we can have a similar way of getting to somewhere in terms of our
Mm-hmm.
viewpoint and our perspective. And for you and I, it was who am I as black men in this world? And what I love about what you've done And from based on what you just said, you just outlined, yeah, you had some challenges growing up as a youth,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that inspired you to ask that question. But the big thing is that you asked the question and you never stopped
Mm-hmm.
asking the question: Who
No.
am I? Who am I in the world? What is my relationship in the
Mm-hmm.
world? What are my relationships in the world? Who are these other people that I'm engaged in?
Mm-hmm.
And then all of those questions, as we ask ourselves questions and we genuinely try to address those questions with
Mm-hmm.
curiosity,
Yes.
with sensitivity, it can lead to a path such as yours, and you begin to discover so much more about our relationship in the world and meaning and significance in life.
Yes.
And it appears to me, just based on you reading the bio and just hearing what I've heard so far, is that you are continually asking questions about yourself in
Definitely.
the world.
Definitely. And I found this book after my 15-year study of the world's religions. I found this book called the Urantia book.
Mm-hmm.
And I found so much liberation, spiritual liberation, because at that time I was trying to find a religion I could belong to,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I joined so many different religions, and every time I would be kicked out for asking more questions. And I soon found out that, you know, a lot of these religious leaders, they're doing great work, but they don't really have the answers to a lot of the questions, you know, and if you don't stay within their spectrum of knowledge, it makes them very uncomfortable. So when I found the Urantia book, I had a long list of questions, and all of the questions were answered. And as I was going through that, my music became more and more spiritual. And then my fans started asking me to perform to officiate their weddings, or if I would bless their children, or if I would baptize them, or, you know, all of these formal religious practices or ceremonies. They were asking me to perform, even though I wasn't promoting a religion. I was just sharing spiritual information. But they said it was the life that I was living, or the love that I was sharing. It was something that I was doing, not what I knew, but how I was living, that made them want me to be a part of these very special moments in their life. And so when I realized I couldn't officiate weddings legally for my fans, I went online and I got an online ordination.
Yeah.
So I became an ordained minister. And even though it was just an online certificate, I took the role very seriously, because the worst thing I could do is say I am a minister but not be living the life of commitment and obedience to God. So I took the role very seriously to become an ordained minister. And since then, I've been traveling across America doing weddings, baptisms, christenings, sometimes even burying my
Mm.
fans or members of my fans' families. So outside of everything else I'm doing, I have this minister role as well. And that gives me great pleasure. That gives me another purpose for living, to know that when people need a spiritual service done for them, they don't have to go back to a organized institutional religion with all the strings that are attached to that. They can just come to a spiritual brother like myself and get that service and be free to move forward with their lives in whichever direction they want.
Mm. Beautiful, Pato. I think again, service is coming up, and
Mm-hmm.
spirituality, and being in touch with something greater than ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and realizing, like you said earlier, that through that exploration, starting with who am I, and digging deeper into the spiritual realm, and recognizing that we're all of the same stuff,
Yep.
whatever you want to call it. We
Yep.
are all an expression of the
Yep.
divine, and the work that you're doing in servicing others, you're servicing your greater self. And that
Mm-hmm.
greater self is something that, in that process of servicing others, caring for them, being with them, like you're
Yes.
talking about being with the homeless, being, or whoever,
Yeah.
like really connecting with another person is a practice of love, is a realization of the very nature of things, the
Mm-hmm.
nature of what it means to exist in the world. And
Yeah.
as we do more of that, as we do things that you're doing, and what I take is what you're suggesting to the rest
Mm-hmm.
of us, as we engage in deep service and sincere service, we, um, for lack of a better word here, I say this often, that there is this, I've heard before, this commentary about, between two people, anybody, any
Mm-hmm.
number of people, there is God.
That's
And
right.
when you're engaged in genuine service and genuine expression of love, we get to experience
That's
God.
right.
We get to
That's right.
experience the presence of God when we are in service, or the presence of the divine. If you don't like the word God, or whatever you like,
Mm-hmm.
it don't matter the
Yes.
word, folks. It doesn't matter at
Mm-hmm.
all. It's really rooted in the experience, and those experiences that you are having yourself, and the experience that you are providing for others. It's just powerful, brother. It's just beautiful. That definitely makes a good life,
Mm-hmm.
having those experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And keep we let's I know we jump straight into that part, which I love. Let's back up so we can, for the audience to kind of hear the trajectory. When you begin to ask that question, who am I, this black man in Birmingham, England? Who am I? How did it lead to anything else? Oh, I'll even ask this: what sparked that question? I guess let me ask. Let's start there first, and then what sparked that question?
I think the spark was reggae music.
Right,
You know,
me
because
too.
my dad was from Jamaica, and we I got involved with his sound system before, when the music from Jamaica was just fun. It was just blue beat, ska, rock steady, just fun music. And then all of a sudden, this new genre called reggae just emerged, and in that genre, the music took a different turn. It was the Rasta community that was saying, "Hey, we come from Africa. You know, we need to look to Africa, to know where we're from and to know our identity." And then they would talk about Jah, you know, and Rastafari. So I wanted to start looking into who is Jah, and I found out that Jah, some Rastas worship Haile Selassie, as God. Some recognize Selassie as Christ, and some recognize Selassie as a great king who is there to set an example for the black race that were in slavery for so many years. There was a remnant that we could look to in Africa that was actually a royal sovereign ruler, so that we could look to Ethiopia, a country that was never colonized, that never had their history erased. We could look to that country to know, hold on, we've got something to be proud about, you know, and we can actually document our history all the way back to King Solomon. So, you know, that was the spark. Reggae music was the spark. And once that spark was ignited in me, it never stopped.
Mm. Yeah, I have to chime in on this because that's the same thing that happened to me. I mean, it rocked my world. I
Mm-hmm.
think I grew up Southern Baptist in rural South Carolina, and I didn't grow up. Um, I guess I can say we're not the most highly educated folks in terms
Mm-hmm.
of educational experiences and institutions and things of that nature. So I didn't really have a lot of knowledge about the
Yeah.
world. Cause I grew up rural too, small town, and I didn't know much about my own history and culture either, hardly at all. And I'm like, yeah, I'm proud to be black person and black man. I want to do something good. I want to do something good for my people. But I didn't really have any kind of historical context at
Uh-huh.
all. Man, when I started listening to roots reggae, it just kind of came across me in college, undergrad. So I'm first generation, finally getting off to college. First time ever even been on a college campus. Thinking like 2 years in, a friend of mine exposed me to Bob Marley. And I'm listening to this stuff and I'm like, what is this? I'm like, this is interesting. And it was challenging my viewpoints and my perspective, but it was an invitation
Yes.
to ask that question, who am I? Like, wow, I've never heard anything like this. And the music, which I hope we get to, hopefully we'll get to as well. The music itself is very trance inducing. It's spiritual
Yes.
music.
Yes.
It's something happened in Jamaica at that time. Something
Yeah.
special happened. And so that music putting you in that that state, that flow like state, and then these brothers at the time mostly were just chanting these ideas about be proud of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, wow, this is something else. Get up, stand up, fight for your rights, burning and looting. I'm like, whoa,
Uh-huh.
this is, and now it was challenging my religious perspective. The Rastafari thing was like, I'm like, wow, this is kind of out there. But it just kept pulling at me
Yeah.
because of this idea of who are you?
Yes.
Who are you, young man?
Mm-hmm.
It just kept pulling at me, and this desire to understand myself. And the thing about reggae music, I think that was different than say something else that was just purely about. Say if I would have initially got into something like the Black Panther Party
Yeah.
and all these other things, I've listened to Martin Luther King, of course. When you're growing up, you can't help but to do that.
Yes.
But this was different. It
Mm-hmm.
was different because it was this sense of pride and a sense of there's something in you as a person
Mm-hmm.
that you can rest on, that you can say, yes, I come from something. I
Mm-hmm.
come from something power. I just didn't come from slavery. I
Mm-hmm.
came from something that was powerful. And what made, I think, the Rastafarian movement very unique was the spiritual dimension of it. I mean, it is rich and again
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
music and that spiritual dimension of yes, you know your roots and where you come from,
Uh-huh.
but not just your physical roots.
Yes, right.
There's something beyond all of that
Yeah.
that's powerful, and when you listen to that music, you can feel it. And it's like, okay, well, what is this? What is happening? And it just led me down this path to where I'm at right now, doing this
Mm-hmm.
podcast, folks. I'm not saying that that's not. I'm not just saying it just to say it. This is how I got here. That was the initiation.
Wow. Nice.
So yeah, music is empowering, particularly reggae music. I interviewed someone earlier, and we were talking about it. And he's like, "It's a thing." He was just like, "It's a thing." And you. Those of us who know, we know, like it is so powerful and transforming, and it initiated so many things in my life, and got me down the path that I'm on now. Just keep asking those questions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, can't help but to bring that in because it's so similar
Yeah.
to my experience. And so from there, when you start to ask that question, when you start to get some knowledge about who you are and your roots, your physical roots as a human being, you have some pride in yourself. What happened next? What led to that the further questioning who you are, a deepening that question of who you are?
I guess it was just an evolution. That's the only way
Mm,
I can say it. That
mm-hmm,
you start with
mm,
a small question and it leads to more questions and then you start your search. And one thing I learned at an early age was that most of my brothers and sisters always look to Egypt.
mm-hmm,
I think because Egypt has the most established civilization and the pyramids and the wealth and so much stuff about Egypt that everybody wants to say they came from Egypt you
mm-hmm.
know and so I wanted to really look across Africa and learn about the different cultures from Africa and that gave me more of what's the right word to use? More of a cultural understanding that not only is my roots from Africa, but there are things about the food we eat. There's things about the way we walk, the way we talk. You know, there's certain behavior patterns that we naturally inherit without even really thinking about the origin
Mm-hmm.
of these cultural behaviors. And when you really look deeply into Africa, you can see that, you know, most of our cultural tendencies, the dancing, the jumping, the running, the sports, all of this stuff is just a part of our natural DNA. And you can see the similarities across Africa. Even as big as Africa is, there are certain similarities. And that's one of the things we found when we started the journey of Ubuntu 3 years ago. We were told that Ubuntu originated with in the Bantu dialect with the Zulu tribe in South Africa. But when we started to travel across Africa, this word Ubuntu could be found in every dialect. And it's very interesting that even if they don't say Ubuntu, they may say Ubumuntu or
Mm.
Umuntu. They may say it differently, but it has the same meaning. And the meaning is as simple as it sounds. I am because we are, and we are because I am. And when you look at the scriptures, when Moses went up to the mountain to speak to God, and he said to God, what do I call you? What's your name? And it's recorded in the scriptures that God said, I am. And when Moses pushed further, God said, I am that I am. So when we look at Ubuntu, I am because we are, it's almost like it's because of the I am that we are.
Mm-hmm.
And we are because of I am.
Mm-hmm.
And when you break down the word in the Bantu dialect, Ubuntu means the way and then of the spirit. So the way of God or the way of I am,
Mm-hmm.
and Ubuntu also means humanity. It means socialism, caring for your community, not socialism in a negative term that the West tried to use, but socialism in its purest form that I am my brother's keeper,
Mm-hmm.
that I am my neighbor's keeper, so in that form, we care for each other. And in that form, that is the meaning of Ubuntu. The way of the spirit is to care for each other, is to be humane, and to lift each other up. So the more I have searched over the years is the more I have come to realize that Africa has a wealth that has not yet been tapped into. The
Mm-hmm.
West only go to Africa for minerals and, financial gain. But when we go back to Africa for philosophical wisdom and spiritual deep understandings, it's all there in Africa, you know, and we can benefit the West so much by learning and sharing.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful, brother. Beautiful. Again, starting, I like how you start that. Well, you ask a small question, and once you ask that small question, then it opens up all kinds of other questions.
Mm-hmm.
If you're seeking, what is required of this, and I have worked on a piece to post on my Substack about this, the importance of asking questions. I'm just going to go ahead and post it now.
Mm-hmm.
um, the importance of asking questions, and you just laid it out. When we ask ourselves questions, start something small, but we
Mm-hmm.
ask ourselves the right question, like who am I, and this question, what is a good life, and I think that leads to who am I. And if we're really curious and we're serious about addressing that question, we're going to dig deeper. We're going to
Yes.
ask more and more questions, because the answer that we get is another question, really. And what you've come to see and what you've come to realize, you know, as your interest in yourself as a black man in the world, and trying to get a sense of who you are and from a historical perspective, it led you down this path. Kept asking those questions, and it got deeper and deeper into, well, who am I beyond my blackness? How can I get answers to that? And I can get answers right there in the root where my ancestors came from. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
can get answers from here. I think we're all universal. Um, and how can I dig deeper and get a sense of who I am from that perspective?
Mm-hmm.
And this realization of I am because we are. Another way of looking at that, and we can think about it, is in some Buddhists look at it this way: is being. I am is just like being, pure
Mm-hmm.
being. And all of us are an expression of I am, or pure being.
Mm-hmm.
And there is nothing outside of that, really.
That's
Just
right.
being, thing, or another word that people use is consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
We're all an expression of pure consciousness, or
Yes.
pure being, or in the Vedantic sense, existence, as some can use that word. Like everything is an expression of existence. Existence is just existence. Being is just being. And we're
Mm-hmm.
all like little nodes of existence, nodes of
Uh-huh.
being. And I can't know myself unless in this world of expression, I have to. Only way God can know itself is through each one of us, through
Us.
our eyes. And how do we show up is going to be based on our education and what we know. But
Mm-hmm.
that realization, though, that I am because we are, or I am just in this conversation, I am because of you. You
Mm-hmm.
are because of me. Because
Mm-hmm.
we are, because I am. And when we realize it's not Broderick, it's not Pato. That's that's egoism. That's
Yeah.
just, that's not what we're talking about, folks. I want to
No.
be clear about that. It's what is the I am in you and the I am in me? It's pure being.
Mm-hmm.
And when we surrender to that, when we center it and we look at that and we call that divine, or we call that God, when we surrender to that, oh my man, and that makes life worth living right there. When you, no matter how hard it gets, but when I realize and I recognize, I see God in you,
Mm-hmm.
you see God in me, and you may see something in me. Maybe I'm behaving in a way that's not most appropriate or whatever. But you see God in me enough to know that, like, okay, then, Broderick, let me kind of pull you to the side and let's have a conversation. What's going on, brother? Do you know who you really are? Because if
Mm-hmm.
you knew who you really are, or who you really were, yeah, if you know who you really are, you wouldn't behave in that way. You
Yes.
wouldn't do that, and you helped me along the path of
Mm-hmm.
realizing who I really am. Because why do you know that? Because you're like, hey man, I
Mm-hmm.
know who you are,
That's right.
and I need you to express that to the best of your abilities, so I can have a better understanding of who I am. It's
Mm-hmm.
so beautiful when you really think about it, and if we really um, really reflect on it. Even from the Christian Southern Baptist religious perspective,
Yes.
this idea of let
Yeah.
your light shine. This
Mm-hmm.
little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Very similar, like if your light shine, I get to see my light in your light because of this concept of I am
Yeah.
because you are.
And this concept is also wrapped up in namaste,
Yeah.
you know, that the God in me recognizes the God in you. And then when you go into scripture, we have the golden rule,
hmm
which is to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And then when you go into But Jesus said, as far as the good news, the gospel of the good news, is to remind everyone that every person is a child of God, which
Right.
makes all of us one family. So
Mm-hmm.
this concept, can be found in different places, and it may have a different name, it may have a different explanation, but when you dig deep into the roots, it's all going back to that oneness, that we are all one.
Mm-hmm. Was the other one in the Old Testament? Is we are made in the image of God.
That's right.
That one too. It's
That's
just it's
right.
everywhere if we really look for it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and and I love what you're doing in your search and your exploration, and this is what I try to do too. And I think what we're trying to do in this last few minutes here is to relate to the audience. Don't allow a language that you're not accustomed to push you away. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I don't know, that's BS. I'm like, well, hold on for this. Just think about it for a little bit. You know, don't if you're not accustomed, or here's a good example. There are some folks who say they started off as a Christian and then they realize that that's just not for them. And
Mm-hmm.
anything associated with Christianity, they don't want
Yes.
to hear anything about it.
Nothing.
I'm like, well, hold on for me. Don't throw the baby out the bathwater.
Yeah.
You might not like certain historical things. There are
Yeah.
certain things, of course, we won't go into all of that. But that doesn't mean that there's nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
There's something in all of that. And if you open yourself to it, and it may require, like with me, it may require me to go and get a different perspective. And
Yes.
eventually I keep exploring these different perspectives. This is what
That's
has
it.
happened to me. Then I go back to where my roots in this lifetime in rural
Yes.
South Carolina, Southern Baptist, even though I wouldn't call myself a Southern Baptist Christian
Yeah.
today, but when I go back and look at it now, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of beauty in there.
Yes.
A lot of powerful things that are there. Even that is not even related to Christian doctrine, actually.
Uh-huh.
It is actually related to what you were saying earlier. Because what got me, why I was so religious as a kid, maybe this is what attracted me to the Rastafarian movement. What got me, it was the what they call it, the prosody of the preacher.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that and the singing in the church, or those
Mm-hmm.
what I love most, the old hymnals, or the old songs like "This Little Light of Mine,"
Yes.
or man, what are some of the other ones? I mean, there's a bunch of other ones that's
Yeah.
relating to the Africans' experience in America
Mm-hmm.
and what these people were doing. And when you go to the church, the preacher might be talking about something, some scripture. Most of them are people are illiterate. Maybe even the preacher is illiterate. It's not they're not just talking about the doctrine. They're talking about something that's in our genes. I think
Mm-hmm.
there's something that's there. And these people, there was a lot more proximity to Africa. We may have lost a lot of the various African traditions, but it was transformed into, if you go to, you can still get a little bit today, not like it used to be, but if
Yeah.
you go to one of these churches,
Yes.
especially in these small rural towns, and you
Uh-huh.
just sit there and you experience what's happening, you're like, this is different. And it's related to what you're saying, this longing for
Mm-hmm.
connection, these, even though they may be saying and singing certain words, it's the feeling behind it. And if
That's
you
right.
sit there and you listen, and if you've explored like you and I have, you can go back and relate, use language to try to
That's right.
explain that experience in a slightly different way. And it's like, oh, I don't have to get caught up into the language.
Mm-hmm.
What's important is, what is the language pointing to?
That's right.
And the point, if the language can point me into a set of behaviors and actions that I think ultimately reflect this Ubuntu, that's what's important. That's the
Yeah.
most important thing.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. They definitely know how to generate those deep emotions. These small churches, they
Mm-hmm.
definitely know how to get you feeling more than sometimes even thinking. Is they
Mm-hmm.
have the emotional side,
Mm-hmm.
which is sometimes important to touch that emotion for us to open up to spiritual receptivity.
Bingo.
Mm-hmm.
And then the benefit of continually studying, continually asking questions, we won't fall into the trap of religious dogma,
Mm-hmm.
like you were saying earlier.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can appreciate the various narratives or stories that each religion carries, but if there's something you disagree with, that's okay. You don't have to conform to that particular tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it, all these traditions started because someone else couldn't conform to the previous
Mm-hmm.
tradition.
That's right.
And that, right, it's totally okay not to do that. In your own tradition, that's how it even started. But we can, if we keep opening ourselves like you've done, um, I feel like, and it looks like from what you're doing in the world and the work that you're doing, the projects that you're doing, I think we can bring that Ubuntu to life even more.
Mm-hmm.
You can love even more. You can connect with spirit even more because you can see it in everything. And you're allowing yourself to see it in everything. And yeah, you might look at certain things like the analogy I gave earlier about, you say you and I, and I'm behaving in a way that you think I probably shouldn't be behaving. And I know I shouldn't be behaving that way. You can come and have that conversation with me because you know,
Mm-hmm.
based on your experiences. And I'm saying this as an example because I believe that you would do that. I believe that you would be like, no, brother, I'm gonna have an honest conversation with you,
Yeah.
Broderick.
Yeah.
that is not that is not the way, brother. I might argue and fight with you a little bit because I also deep inside know, but I'm gonna listen to you. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
listen to you because I feel like I can see it in you. Even through this internet, I can see like this is a genuinely good person. And they're trying to like nudge me in a way and
Mm-hmm.
try to shine some light in a way. I think that that's what we're doing. That's what we're here for each other
That's
for.
what we're
We're
here.
here to help and support each other in some way. And sometimes it's like you said earlier, it's sitting down and having a conversation with someone that's having a hard time, not necessarily giving advice, just
Mm-hmm.
listening,
Just
just being
listen.
present with them,
Yeah.
or what you're doing with your music.
Yeah.
Like singing, making the music that you're making is positive. It has this Ubuntu vibe to it.
Mm-hmm.
People listening to that, they're having a hard time. Like, let me listen to some music, and then they're tuning into the music, and you get put into this. Um, I think that's one of the powerful thing about reggae is that it puts you into this hypnotic state,
Yeah.
and then the singer, such as yourself, are sharing this beautiful message, and the person is sitting there like, that's interesting. That's something for me to think about and to reflect on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are just, and that I can see why that makes life worth living.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also do conflict resolution
Mm-hmm.
and marriage counseling and sometimes children counseling with the parents.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've found is that the key to resolving disagreements and to healing relationships is sincerity. Um, when two an example, I sometimes I talk to some couples, and let's say the woman in the relationship is a fan or the man is a fan, and they approach me to get involved with their counseling. The other partner sometimes may feel as though I'm going to take sides because the person that knows me the closest, I may, gravitate towards, you know, believing them more. And the first thing I say when I go into any of these conflict situations is, I'm not here to take sides. I'm here to allow you to honestly explore what's going on and how you can heal it. Because I'm not there to heal it either. I'm just there as a third party, neutral to listen. Now, when I talk to a couple and both of them are sincere, there is always an immediate healing. Because even if they didn't want to recognize what they were doing before, now that there's a third party holding them responsible, they open up to recognizing How are they contributing? Because let's say I have a woman saying, my husband is this and my husband is that. Then when I come in and the husband explains his side, sometimes the woman ends up saying, I am so sorry. I didn't realize, or I wasn't listening, you know? So it sometimes takes a third party to get involved. But sincerity and the sincerity that comes from being from that exposure, you could call it being exposed to having to put your truth on the table, you
Mm-hmm.
know, when you start to apply that same sincerity to yourself is when you start to find peace with yourself and you become more peaceful to the people around you, because now you start to address your own personal shortcomings internally,
Mm-hmm.
sincerely, without creating excuses for yourself. And
Mm.
that's our downfall. When we start to do something that is wrong and then justify it, that's the long road, before we can come back to reality. We can
Mm-hmm.
go down this long road of stupidity, but when you start to say, okay, there's a spirit within me, let me talk to my spirit, let me put my cards on the table with my spirit and then look at myself in the mirror and how can I improve myself internally and then start to live that life externally, and I've met atheists who are beautiful people doing amazing work. Sometimes I find some atheists are doing more service for humanity than some of my religious friends,
Mm-hmm.
and an atheist doesn't realize why they're doing good. They're doing good because it's a natural fruit on their tree, you know? Whereas a religious person sometimes says, I'm doing good because of God, or I'm doing good so that my congregation can see that I'm doing good. Or I'm doing good for this reason or for that reason. Whereas someone who's doing good with no intentions, for no other reason than the purpose of doing something for somebody else, to me, that is a truly good person.
Mm-hmm.
And I read something the other day in the Urantia book that says when the desire comes within your soul to do something good for somebody, that desire originates from God. Whether you believe in God or not, the desire to do good comes from God.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I realized that, I started to say, hold on, because I used to have a little judgment about atheists at first, in my early days. But then I realized, hold on, these people are serving God. They're following the promptings that God is putting in them. And they're serving their brothers and sisters, which is allowing God to work through them. And as they're serving their brothers and sisters, they're also serving God within those brothers and sisters.
Yep.
So it's so I've come to this understanding that it's not just religion that gets you to heaven. What
No.
gets you to heaven is being a good person,
Yes.
you know? And you can put any tag you want on it, atheist, Baptist, Jehovah Witness, Muslim, whatever label you want to put on it. How are you living?
Yep.
What are you doing for your brothers and sisters? Are you sitting down on this light that you have? Or are you taking this light and lifting it up so people can see something beautiful and glorify God through you, even
Mm-hmm.
if you don't even know you're doing the work for God? So I just
Mm-hmm.
wanted to share that.
Love it. That's just beautiful. And I think it goes back to what you were saying earlier. And Ubuntu. Let's just use that as the theme.
Yes.
It just keeps coming back to that. You don't need God for that. You don't need the word God. Remember,
Uh-huh.
God is just a language. And
Yes,
when people say that they're atheists, they're just not theists. And to
that's
me,
right.
to not be a theist is that you don't believe that there is an anthropomorphic being that's
That's right.
doing things. But that doesn't mean, because there's plenty of atheists that believe that what we were talking about earlier, being, there's pure being in the world. They don't call it like it doesn't
Yes.
need to be anthropomorphized. It doesn't mean like human like,
Yes.
but as they recognize that there is some consciousness out
Something.
there,
There's
and that
some.
consciousness in me is a consciousness in
Yes.
you. And then
They,
they're like, you know what? I just want to do good in the world. And then I
they,
think,
they
like
know it's there, but they refuse to call it God.
God, exactly. That's
Any
it.
any other
A
name,
name.
but don't
Exactly.
call it God, or
Exactly.
make it attached to institutionalized religions.
Exactly. That's
That
all.
is the biggest
Exactly.
problem. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only thing, and it's like they're doing the good work.
Hmm.
I might, or you may, or somebody else might use the word God. I use any word; it doesn't matter to me
Hmm.
because what God and all these different religious names, it becomes idolatry,
Yeah,
and we're like, no, that's just the finger pointing.
that's right.
God is the finger pointing to something that's greater than a word God. Because what
Hmm.
happens is that we get so caught up into language and we're over here fighting about language, going to
Uh-huh.
wars, killing each other over language. I'm like, that's a human creator. We're killing each
Yes,
other over idolatry.
that's the
And we're
problem.
not recognizing that even the people in the same religious tradition have the same religious foundational tradition. Like, say, for instance, like even in Christianity itself, the Catholics against the Protestants
Yes,
and killing each other. I'm like,
yes.
this is madness.
Yeah, I had some Jehovah Witnesses visit me, knock my door, and then shortly after that, we had some Catholics with their pamphlets walking down the
Mhm.
street. And I asked both of them, how do you feel about this other religion? And both of them said they're going to hell if
I know, right?
if you don't follow if you don't follow my tradition, you're going to hell, basically. Everybody else,
I
even if they've
know.
just got one paragraph that they believe in differently
Hmm.
than another church, they're wrong.
Right? I
And,
know.
and if you're wrong in your belief, you're wrong in everything. So
Yeah. No, but that's not Ubuntu,
no, that's not
right?
good. And the Urantia book says, um, knowledge. You're supposed to be free to believe what you want to believe, as
Hmm.
long as you are living in harmony with the will of God. There's
Right?
flexibility in your concepts. And so truth is truth. There is only one truth, but it's not worth arguing about during this lifetime because we are so diverse and we do not have celestial, visible representation. We are supposed to, most planets in the universe have visible celestial representation. That means that if you want to know what's happening outside of your small microcosm of the universe, you ask a celestial being who has been to these other worlds, and they can tell you, oh, this is what this is, and this is what this is, and this is what this is. When you have that type of celestial guide available to speak to, it eliminates all of the gray area and all of the need for metaphysical thinking, which is really guessing. It's the highest
Hmm.
level of spiritual guessing that
Yeah.
there is. But you're thinking outside of any scriptural reference because none of them contain these questions that only metaphysics can answer. But above metaphysics is revelation,
Yeah.
and revelation can answer the questions that metaphysics can't answer. So what I was getting to is that without this information, human beings can only really have an idea of what is truth, and we can get truth from all of these different human sources that have been compiled and create our own truth based on these different truths. But ultimately, we need to have an open mind because any of these truths could be altered or upgraded,
Yep.
or a light of revelation shone on it so that it has a broader spectrum than the narrow way that we're thinking about it. But what
Mm-hmm.
is fundamental is spiritual unity,
Yep.
is love and worship. Because if we are all humble enough to bow down and recognize that we are worshiping one God, then we can look at each other and say, I love you, brother. I love you,
Mm-hmm.
sister, because we are
Mm-hmm.
spiritual family. And even if we don't believe the same thing, we can live in spiritual unity.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. We're coming to an end here, and I think that that's just beautiful. And I think, reminding us that concepts are just concepts, and to
Mm-hmm.
think that a human animal that's been around for 200,000 years in a universe of billions of years with billions of galaxies, to think
Yes,
that our little minds and little concepts that we have all of the truth is madness.
that's right. It's
We have a
madness.
Yeah, we have part of the truth, of course,
Yes.
because we all are an expression of the divine.
Mm-hmm.
But if we recognize that we only have a part, let me humble myself.
Yeah.
Let me learn how to love, like you say. Because if I love, I get to know a little bit more about the universe through another. And
Mm-hmm.
through my love, I get to tap into a different plane. I think we get access. We might not necessarily have all the cognitive access or the intellectual access to the,
Mm-hmm.
we can call it the celestial realm, but we can get a feeling into that
Yes.
realm, even beyond it,
That's right.
through love, through the
Mm-hmm.
power of love. Man, that's just beautiful, Pato. And I'm glad the audience got to hear you unpack your view on the world. I mean, we can keep going for hours to really
Mm-hmm.
unpacking this. But just this little snippet of your view of the world, we can even appreciate and love your music even more.
Nice.
I encourage you to go and listen to this brother's music, and you hear how he's using poetry in his music over uh, music that is transcenducing. Music is transcenducing, right? That's the original face of music, right?
Yes.
Is facilitating trance so that human beings can come into contact with pure being, with God. We can use the word God or the divine. And the work that you're doing is beautiful. I think, um, I encourage. I hope you continue to do that. And as a listener to your music, as a brother, as of yours, and getting to understand where you're coming from, it's beautiful, man. We need it. We need people like you creating this type of music that, um, overlaying it with a message of love.
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful thing, and it's a much needed thing in our world, in our troubled world. And I just pray you continue to do so. Keep
Thank you.
doing that.
And if people want to find my music, I created something on this website called Bandcamp, and it's
Hmm.
Bandcamp Pato Banton, and I've actually put about 10 of my albums on there for free. So you
Hmm.
can download 10 different albums. And also I did an album called The Words of Rastafari, which is there, and another album called The Words of Christ with 50 different tracks and lessons, and that's for free. 50 of those tracks are for free. So jump on the site, bandcamp/Pato Banton, and enjoy.
All right, I will definitely put that in the show notes along with the website for the documentary.
Yes.
Man, it's just so much. Do you have any other final words before we sign off here for the audience?
The only thing I want to say is that, if there's a saying in the scriptures, if you ask, you will receive, and that's all I can say. If you want to have a beautiful life, a quality life, ask, be humble, go in prayer and ask. And when we ask for something, what it does is it changes something within us. When we ask for it, then we start to mobilize ourselves to achieve it. And when we ask for something, we're not just sitting down waiting for it to drop on our lap. We ask for it, then we work towards it. But as we're working towards it, we keep in mind that we are also getting help from within.
Right?
you know and so ask for peace in your life. Ask for peace in your family. Ask for peace in your community. And then let's work towards that. I'm not in a position to change the world. I can't stop, the war in certain countries, because there are certain religious and political leaders who are set in what they want to do. So I don't have the power to change the world, but I do have the power to change my world. And my world starts with me and then goes outwards bit by bit by bit. So ask for that. Ask for that within yourself and then attain it. And then when you found your inner peace, then ask for it in your family, ask for it in your community. And then you'll be amazed to see how things change. And not everybody wants that. Some people are very resistant to peace and love and spirituality and change. But the people who are ready for that will gravitate towards you when you start to become a spiritual magnet, pulling these like-minded people towards you. And as they are pulling you towards them, then you can start to look forward to a more happier and peaceful life when you strive for that. So that's my encouragement to everybody, and be of service. Because when you're serving others, you have less time to complain about your own issues.
It's so true. Wow, my brother, this is so rich. Man, I just want to keep going. There's so much to explore, and we have to table that for another time.
All right.
It's been a pleasure, my brother, to have this conversation with you. I'm very happy that you're open to coming here and sharing your wisdom. No matter how many people are listening now, but this stuff is out there forever. And I wanted to say this right before we sign off too, is that with AI, every conversation that is out there, everything is out there, and we're having an impact. We're having an impact. What you said in this interview is going to be here for forever, as long as technology is available for human beings. And I think what you said is going to be put into it's going to be knowledge for AI to share for sure. But I
Yeah.
think it'll be here for other ears, and it's important for us to continue to have these types of conversations, exploring together and sharing with the world your wisdom and our wisdom through our experiences, so that we can prayerfully encourage a little more love and light in the world. So thank you. This has been just beautiful, and looking forward to many more conversations in the future, brother.
Thank you, Brother B.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. I hope this conversation has inspired you to reflect on your own views of the good life. If you enjoyed the show and want to hear more inspiring and thought-provoking conversations, please follow, write a review, and rate us on your favorite podcast app. If you are tuning in on YouTube, please hit that like button and subscribe. Your support is very much appreciated.